The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
And Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
Good to be with you.
Folks, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network I'm sure you'll enjoy called The Catholics of Oz, which you can find wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz. If you check out their latest episode, which will be out this weekend, as right after this episode releases, they're talking about the Pope's new encyclical, Delexit Nos. They do a great job. So definitely check that out. Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com/OZ. So for this episode, we've decided to dive into writing tools. And I say writing tools and not note-taking tools because we've talked about some note-taking tools before, and I'm sure we'll talk about them again. And note-taking tools are all the rage because we're all needing to write down little snippets of this, that, and the other thing. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about some long-form writing. Not everyone has to do long-form writing. Some do it as a hobby. They like to write fiction or blog posts or articles, and some do it as a profession for work, or they're writing the Great American Novel or Canadian novel, I suppose, or European novel. I mean, whatever. It could be a novel for any ethnographic area. In any case, we want to talk about some of these tools, some of the common ones, some of the basic ones, and some of the things that help you write that could be an aid to your writing. And so I want to get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. So the first place to start is with general writing tools, the ones that most people would have. If you own a Mac, it comes with Pages. It's a general word processor. Everyone knows about Microsoft Office. If you are of the free and open source software persuasion, you probably know about LibreOffice. If you are in the Android or Google world, you probably are using Google Docs. What is it you guys prefer when you need to grab something for some long form writing? Is it one of these tools or something else? What about you, Father?
It depends on what machine I'm using. Because I'm working in a work environment that I often do collaboration with others when I'm doing long form writing, Microsoft Office is usually the go-to for me. That allows sharing that just works. It's possible doing with LibreOffice, but then I have to teach everyone how to do it, and I'm not gonna do that.
That's very true.
Google Docs as well would probably be my second. If I'm collaborating in Office, not in Microsoft Office, in the physical office that I work in with people who are employees, it's usually Microsoft Office because we have the Office 365 package. If I'm collaborating with my students I teach, people from the school, or people outside of the office, usually it's on Google Docs because I find that more friendly and more likely for people to have Google accounts.
That's so true. And the collaboration's a big one because, just, a little behind the scenes, I do Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World with Jimmy, and he writes all the scripts in Word, and he saved them in a Dropbox that we share. And we have to be very careful that I'm not in the document making changes while he's in the document making changes, because then we get these conflicting versions, and it's a pain in the neck. Whereas if you have a Google Doc, the nice thing about that is we're right now, the three of us are in a Google Doc as our show rundown. And it has our show links and notes and all that stuff in it. And we can each, be making changes as we go. And it's really, for that sort of collaboration, especially at a distance, Google Docs is really great for that. So especially if you have long writing projects with other people, sometimes people do that. Google Docs might be a great place to do that.
And I could write something right now while we're talking.
Yep.
And it shows up.
and everyone would see it, right?
Yes.
The one thing I would hazard with this is that if you are doing long form collaboration, you would get lost on this, where if you make an edit on page 3 and they are assuming that has stayed the same and you're working on page 40, you're going to lose that situation. So you do want some version control if you're going to do long form writing like that collaboratively. Google
Docs does have good long form control. It's not as extensive as Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office will highlight the changes, and it just works really well. So like even back in 2013, 2014, when I was working on my master's, I would share that on the cloud with my professor, and he could make the suggestions of edits, and I would see it highlighted with his name. And that was in the early version of Office collaboration. That was before the Office 365 change and all of that. So I'm sure those things work very well now.
Okay.
Well, one thing I was thinking about, and I haven't tried this, so this is just a recommendation from weird kind of programmer land, but long form writing on GitHub might be really interesting, where there's checkouts and version control and then updating, especially if you're doing it with a large team. So if there are several people that are writing a long form document and maybe you're responsible for one character in the midst of a story, in order to make sure that everything is organized, it would give you a very quick look at what's changed before when you first check out to start your writing session. It would give you a look at what's changed and what you might need to be aware of. And then you could start writing off of that. And then when you check it back in, it has to get accepted and merged back into the main branch before it becomes part of what the actual product is.
Just be careful. If your edits aren't good, Linus Torvalds is going to send you an angry email. Inside humor there.
Yes, inside Linux humor. All right, that's pretty good. Thomas, do you have a particular tool that you prefer for long form?
I go to Google Docs always. It's available on everything, and that's the thing that really gets me. I can pick up my phone and open the doc and start writing on it. I can pick up my my computer and write on it. I can even merge my Keep Notes into the document if I want to. So I can write on Keep Notes really quickly if I don't want to have to pull up the whole document and figure out where it is. I can just write something on Keep Notes and then really easily kind of pull it into the actual Google Doc itself.
Now, Dom, with Pages, I am not aware of any good collaboration on Pages.
They've added collaboration, so through the cloud, but it's Mac only, so with other Mac and iOS users. But there is a collaboration and even live collaboration still in its early stages. I haven't used it a lot. I'd like to give it a test with somebody just to see how it works, but it's still rough compared to Google. I mean, Google's way ahead on this. So I mean, I remember when it was new with what was it, Google Wave? Do you guys remember that?
Oh my goodness! Blast from the past.
Yeah, the early days of it was an early beta, and it was very early collaborative document. It was like magic at the time. And so the Pages is still early stages. I want to see Apple develop that more, and I'd like to see Microsoft work more on it as well. I want to see a regular regular Office documents be more open to that collaboration stuff. But as far as like if you're going to write a book solo, I mean, Word works. I mean, it's got every tool you can imagine in it. So I mean, so it's there, and it's probably, if you're going to publish, probably the format your publisher wants to receive the manuscript in.
I think you should bring Father Corey back when he wants for a guest time, specifically around the Apple announcements and updates, and make him have to do it on collaborative with Pages with you. He would love it.
You need some penance, sure. Oh, yes. I should mention, by the way, Father Corey, non sequitur, he announced that he has been officially accepted into the U.S. Air Force chaplaincy program. So sometime in 2025, he'll be heading off to officer candidate school and becoming a U.S. Air Force chaplain. I'm still rooting for him to become part of the Space Force and end up at Cheyenne Mountain doing a deep space telemetry with, I'm going to air quotes. That's a Stargate
Live long and
reference.
prosper.
Yeah.
He'll be the priest that solves the issue of how do we send astronauts into space for extended periods of time and get them the Eucharist. This is the problem we need to solve.
The problem is the solution is to send Father Corey. So
there you go.
Back to our tools. I want to talk about some more basic tools that we can use. And I know we like I said, we're not talking about note-taking tools, but there are some tools that are good for shorter form. And the first one I want to talk about is a Mac app, Mac and iOS called Drafts. I use this all the time. I use it for lots of different things. It's sort of a blank slate as far as that you can program it. And in fact, you can get extensions, and there are some writing tool extensions that a third-party user has added. I should have put a link in the show notes, and it's at the blog is Thought Asylum, and but what he does is he's made a whole bunch of extensions or actions that you can add to drafts that help you with writing tasks. I mean, there's like dozens and dozens of them, and I'm just trying to quickly bring it up here. I'm not going to be able to do that while we're talking because otherwise it would be you see here, Thought Asylum. Yeah, so he's got all kinds of writing tools and yeah, so I'm just trying to find
is this one a free app?
So Drafts is not itself free. It has a free and a paid level.
Okay.
But if you go to thoughtasylum.com, that's the website of the guy who does it. So a lot of drafts you can do for free, and there are some higher level functions that require a premium or paid. But it's an excellent app for using for lots of different things.
And the paid version is $19.99 a year.
Yeah, which is not a lot.
And that's not in your in the database of no, in your
it's not set app. No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm still paying for it extra too, so you can see how good it must be. So there's that tool. There's another tool I used for a long time called Ulysses, which is a markdown editor. And one of the things I like about Ulysses is that it lets me organize notes. It's very good at, so if you get a book and you've got chapters, it lets you kind of arrange things and you can write in different chapters non-linearly and rearrange stuff. And it was really good at that. I've kind of gotten away from Ulysses. There were some quirks in its implementation of Markdown that kind of got to me after a while. I don't want to get too far into it because I do want to talk about Markdown in a bit. But and then one that I don't use but is I've heard recommended a lot is another one called IA Writer. This is a granddaddy of text writing software. It's for Mac and Windows, and it has all kinds of tools for writing, and distraction-free writing is really it's stock and trade, and yeah, so that's been really good. Another one that's like that is Bear, another one that sells itself for distraction-free writing, and its main attraction, I think, for a lot of people is how pretty it is. It's a very nice environment, and let's not discount how important it is for your writing environment to be pleasant, so that you stay there and you don't fiddle with it and get distracted and go off and do other things. So that's a big one. But what do you guys recommend for the more basic editing tools, or any ideas or things that you've tried?
I kind of waffle between two. I like code editors. And so one of the good things you can do is if you build a code editor to have some highlighting text and just borrow from some apps that exist or from some plugins that exist, you can make some really effective writing tools out of it. So I recommend Kate. which is an editor that it's very similar to Visual Studio Code. And when you get really long form text, one of the great things about Kate is that it has a side view window. So you can look at your writing in a large window. And then on the side, you can see like the whole text all laid out in a very long view. So for code writing, that's great. But it's also really interesting for writing because you can see where it fits into maybe your chapter length and how your chapters match up to each other if you're really careful about the way you lay them out. So I've used that for long form writing. I've also been a glutton for punishment and just gone straight into Vim. And one of the things, but hear me out for a second, because one of the things I really like about writing in Vim is it's all keyboard. There's no moving off of the keyboard. So you stay completely on the keyboard. Now, you have to learn Vim. You have to learn the keyboard shortcuts and how to use it as an actual editor for writing instead of for code. But it works really well, especially if you want a pure distraction-free environment and not to be moving around and changing screens or anything like that. But just
90% of people who use Vim can never exit Vim.
This is true. That's the first thing you have to learn is how to save your document and how to exit.
I usually just close the terminal window. For those who don't know, Vim is a command prompt text editor. At the basic command prompt level, it's in Linux or in the Mac command line or in the terminal app, that sort of thing. So it's hardcore. You really want to get into it. And Kate is Mac, Windows, and Linux, which is good. So it's
that is an open source product made by KDE, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a KDE product.
And then there's another one called Sublime Text, which I used for a while, just as a text editor. Was that the one that was? No, that's a commercial product. But it's actually kind of similar to Kate. It's a nice product too. I like it. One of the things that they often do is they have syntax highlighting, which is if you're writing in a programming language, it highlights different words or punctuation differently based on its function in that language. But if you're writing prose, the long form, just writing a report or writing a fiction, you can still get syntax highlighting for that sort of text that you're writing, and it really highlights things. So dialogue can be highlighted, or the punctuation of different kinds, or other types of writing like that. So those can be really useful for that. Father, you mentioned one. It's in the show notes.
Joplin is a note-taking app. It's on Linux. Thomas, do you know, is there a Windows version of that? I think
there's a Windows version of it as well. It's not jumping out on their website.
No,
though.
It doesn't. No. Well, they're showing it on iPad and on iPhone as well. So they have an app version. So they also have a version in the cloud.
Okay.
And I just clicked download, and it's downloading in EXE. So there's a Windows version.
Okay. So it's cross-platform across all of them. That's nice.
Yeah. It's a pretty basic tiered note program. So it's going to give you folders and adding things. I think some people have compared it to how Evernote used to be.
It looks a lot like it. Yeah. In the days past, I would have even said, you could write long form in Evernote. I mean, it could have been useful for that. I'm no longer the Evernote fan I used to be. It's changed a lot. It's not what it was, which sadly.
When I was in college seminary, I'd use Evernote for papers, but I would not even think of it now. Because it's just the ability to exit from it, to export things to Word documents, and the organization of it is just not the same as it used to be.
The new owners have changed. They've changed what they're going for. They've changed the product, and the product is it's for a different audience, and that's fine. It's just it's not the one I used to love. So I've moved on. My heart has moved on. let's talk about some specialized writing tools to help you with your writing, or that are more focused on a particular kind of writing. And I want to mention one cross-platform, Windows and Mac, called Scrivener. Now, I'm going to guess that some books that you've read that you've really loved from some well-known authors were written in Scrivener. This is a tool created for the precise purpose of writing books. And there's tools in it for helping authors keep track of characters, and there's different modes for arranging the outline of the story and keeping track of the plot. And there's all kinds of tools within it. It's a really powerful system. And if you have any designs on writing, a novel or a novella or short stories, even this is a great tool to look at, Scrivener.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one to keep track of anything that you're like. If you have a very complex set of characters and you want to keep track of where they are and what they're doing at any given time, because it can get away from you. If anybody who's done a long form writing over a long period, it's very easy to forget where you've left off if you leave a project for a month and then come back to it, or even if you just have forgotten about a particular character and need to catch back up with where you left them in the story.
Right.
And Scrivener has a lot of really good tools for that.
Yeah, it's as much for organization of your writing as it is for the actual writing itself. Like, you can import Word docs into it. You could write in a different document and then import it into Scrivener and use that to organize. And it also has additional tools for screenwriting, which has a whole another thing where you have to have certain special formatting and ways of writing it. I don't know if I've heard screenwriters talk about screenwriting and talking about Scriveners, and some of them kind of like, it's not great. But there isn't actually really a great screenwriting tool out there anyway. So it's, if you're just starting out, maybe the thing to do. There's also some tools even for nonfiction that they have for, keeping track of research and that sort of stuff. So definitely powerful.
Yeah. Scrivener, one just point of warning about it is the learning curve there's a higher learning curve of entry into it. I tried maybe 7 years ago to try to use this for homily prep, and I gave up. It just wasn't. It's probably the wrong use case for the tool of what I was using it for. So
sure. Yeah, that is one thing. It does have a steep learning curve. They have lots of tools to help you learn, and there's lots of people out there with YouTube videos and stuff like that. But it's just something you have to be aware of if you're going to get started with it. But there are open source alternatives for these sorts of bigger writing tools out there. There's one called Manuscript that's open source, free as in beer tool for writers with a lot of the same sort of things. Not as often is the case, not as full featured as Scrivener, with which is a paid. Scrivener's like $50-$60 to buy it, but it has a bunch of tools like distraction-free mode and organizing tools and outlining tools built within it to help you keep track of where you're going, your characters, your plots, the world building, that sort of thing. So that is also useful. It's funny that the screenshots that they offer apparently is someone writing a book about a biblical studies book of some sort, or at least some of the screenshots, because I see references to stuff like in Samaria and the Philippians, which is kind of funny.
The guy's website is
Theologeek.
Theologeek, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got to be somebody who's a part of our tribe, let's say.
Yeah. somewhere in the vicinity, right?
Yes. So that's one, again, available, free to download it's a Linux, a Windows. Oh, there's even a Mac version. Interesting. So nice. It's so cross-platform. I didn't see the Mac version earlier. And then let's see. So those are a couple of big organizing tools, but then there's also some specialized tools. One that a lot of people may have heard of, called Grammarly, and it's a grammar and spell checker, and
it's also branched out a lot. They're starting. I don't know if they're getting into the AI space or not. I'm sure they have to be, but a lot of what it can do is also tell you about the tone that you're using and what the overall feel of the writing style that you have. And it's really good. Like, it is a very good tool. I would really, if you're a teacher who teaches writing, Grammarly should definitely be a part of your toolkit if you can swing it, because it can help kids to realize how they're writing, to start understanding and be critical of their own writing. And if you're a person who is interested in getting better at writing, or wondering why you're always sounding so down in your books, or the opposite, Grammarly can really help you with that. It can start pointing you in the right direction of what the feel of your writing is as you're writing. And
it gives you categories of how you want to be writing. So if I want it to be more persuasive, it's going to give me tips on verbiage that can be more persuasive versus informative versus exciting. Right. And so it's able to do that. That one, I think it's like a $12 a month. So
there's a free level, which gives you some very, very basic features. But yeah, you'll probably end up wanting, if you want to use it regularly, spend the $12 a month. And I want to tell people, if you've used grammar checkers in the past, like even like words built in grammar checker, and you've been put off by it, like I have, like, no, that's a perfectly acceptable form of a sentence.
Yes.
The grammar checkers have gotten much better than they used to be. Yeah. And, as much as we are wary, we are rightly wary of the overuse of AI in things, AI has actually improved this sort of thing. So it is nice to see. I have to kind of tangentially mention that Apple's Apple Intelligence first set of features has come out this week as we talk. I haven't installed it on the Mac yet, but I've put it on the iPad and the phone. And it has these writing tools. And one of the things is, like, you can say, take this bunch of writing of this email and make it more enthusiastic, or more friendly. And it always wants to, like, it always changes it to add the word "hey" at the beginning, like, as if, like,
that's as friendly as it gets.
Yeah, it's like "hey," like, and every single time it's like, no, that's not all that intelligent. So they're working on it. But with Grammarly, you got to be careful with any grammar checker or anything that where you're checking your writing, because while you do want to punch up your writing, maybe you don't want to lose your voice. And that's important. So you got to take these things with a grain of salt. Is it stripping it of my personality? You don't want it to be all plain.
And I would give a word of caution if you're a student, using the replacement at an excessive level in these things will probably flag your papers for AI.
Yes, very true.
And I mean, even when I was teaching, every paper I got, I would grab a paragraph of it and submit it for review of AI to see, because the kids had already figured it out, right? And so you calling them on it once or twice, and they will usually stop or get smarter at using it. So
now, in addition to Grammarly, which is a paid product, there are other tools available out there. There's one I found called Hemingway app, or Hemingway editor, and you enter, you put in some of your writing, and it will go through it, and it will do like fixing grammar, but it will also do rewriting, and there are upgraded versions of the system, where you log into the system, but it will do things like grade you on readability and flag like weak passive voice and all that sort of stuff that you would normally see. So it's a little less full featured than Grammarly is, but it's available there, and it's got a bunch of it is still free, free to use. And then there's a free trial, and then there's like $8.33 a month for 5,000 AI sentences a month and unlimited grammar fixes.
Yeah.
So,
and there's also a desktop application. It's not doing the AI, it's doing the grammar side that I believe is a $19.99 one time.
is that Hemingway or Grammarly?
No, that's Hemingway.
Oh, it is. Oh, interesting. I didn't see that. Okay. Interesting. So that's Hemingway. So, it's best for like improving your readability. And it's features, highlights complex sentences, suggests simplifications to enhance clarity, conciseness. Another one is called Pro Writing Aid. This is another one that's free to start. You can, there's a paid version that starts at $10 a month. So it's similar. And it's also very much like that. There's an app that you can download, and it has a grammar checker, a rephraser, a paraphrasing tool, which is interesting. You got to be careful with that because you don't want to just simply paraphrase sources. That's a no-no. You can even very important, well-educated people fall for that one, as you can ask the former president of Harvard, who got caught paraphrasing in some of her work. So, but if you're trying to paraphrase yourself, for instance, or if you're paraphrasing and crediting, that would be fine as a use case. But so it acts like a grammar checker and style editor, provides detailed reports on various aspects of your writing. So that's really useful. Father, this is a set of tools that I think you mentioned in a previous episode. I think
this was a pick of the week.
Yeah, TinyWow. I've used their image tools a lot, but they have a whole set of writing tools. I don't know how useful many of them are. I mean, there's a couple dozen here, but they're all basically free. But I mean, even things that are very specific, like generate real estate descriptions, or podcast scriptwriter. I'm going to latch onto that one.
There you go.
So what each of these are is it's using ChatGPT. And so it's pre-written the prompts for you. And so you're just giving it the text, and they have their own proprietary prompts that they've done. They won't tell you what the prompts are. And that's going to help to get a precise output out of ChatGPT.
That's kind of neat.
I'm actually right now I'm getting the podcast script for writing tools to help with writing a novel and let's see what it generates there.
There you go.
No, I'm not subscribing. Thank you, TinyWow. I'm just gonna hit generate, and while we're at it, that reminds me, like last week, Father Andrew had a pick of the week for Notebook LM, which is a Google product. It's a research tool, and that is fantastic. I've been using it to help me dig into the Pope's. I mentioned the Pope's new encyclical De Lexit Nos, which is, those can be pretty dense theological things. And I put some stuff in there. I put a link to the document itself and then some links to some articles, and it's kind of brings it all together and created a briefing document for me on these are the high points, and this is the stuff to dig into as you read it. So, so
that's kind of neat.
Yeah. So the script, welcome to the Right Now podcast, where we discuss all things writing for aspiring authors. I'm your host, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into a topic that every writer can appreciate: writing tools to help with novel writing. So anyway, I'm not going to go on and on that. But,
did they give us some? Did they choose some of ours?
No, it mentions Word and Google Docs, Focus Writer and Write Monkey. Those are two ones I didn't know about. Actually, I mean, so in some ways, this sort of thing can be helpful because it can surface things that you weren't aware of. So, it's interesting. I mean, it could be a fun exercise. Sometimes if you're writing something, it can be helpful to have a different perspective on it. So maybe if you're writing a novel, generate a podcast script about the topic of the novel or something that happens in the novel, and it can give you some ideas for, say, dialogue or plot. And so it could be useful, that sort of thing. I got to say that.
One thing on the Tiny Wow thing that I just noticed in the writing tools, this isn't really in our specific topic, but there's a YouTube video summarizer. So if I have a YouTube video, it can summarize the YouTube video for me. So
that's pretty
in case you don't want to watch the full YouTube video or watch it at 2 times speed, you can just have AI summarize it for you.
I think that could be handy with some, say, Matt Fradd 4-hour videos. I love you, Matt, but some of those videos I can sit still for 4 hours to watch.
Just
highlights, please.
Matt, get to the point. Land the plane.
So, now
I mentioned the next one. The next one
okay.
I mentioned was Scribus, which is a desktop publishing app. And this one is it's on Linux. I don't know if you can get it on other
platforms. Mac and Windows. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And OS 2, if you still have an installation of it, by the way.
Oh, yes. Finally.
But this one's really good for if you are publishing yourself. Obviously, this would be really great because you can lay out the format that you want the final product in. But I've found this really useful in laying out the format for me to get a good sense of what my book looks like. So one of the big challenges you have is your book is always this concept in your head. It's always far in the future. It's never quite done. And motivating yourself to finish is really challenging. So what I've done occasionally is just thrown my manuscript into Scribus with the settings of a novel, and then I can see it actually laid out like a chapter book, and it looks just like a chapter book. And it's very inspiring to see that because you get to see, oh, that's what it's going to look like when it's actually a physical copy that someone has in their hands and is able to work with. So whether you're publishing or not, I definitely recommend getting this one. It's an open source product, so it's not going to cost you anything to do that. But if you need that motivation, give it a try.
Now, would you compare this to like a Microsoft publisher?
Yes, it's very much like Microsoft Publisher without all of the pain that comes along with Microsoft Publisher.
So the reason I say that, and being a Catholic podcast, for those who happen to be bulletin editors, one of the great tragedies that is happening is Microsoft in the future at some point, vaguely, as all their discontinued products happen, they're not going to support Publisher anymore. And so you need to find a new product. People have used Canva a little bit.
Use InDesign.
InDesign, which has a high learning curve.
Yes.
There's Affinity has a product called Publisher, which I believe Canva has kind of tied in with them a little bit. I don't think they own them, but I think there's a close relation. So I'm going to have to check out. It's been a quick minute since I've used Scribus and see if that...
I did use it for our bulletin at the parish that I was at when I was in charge of the bulletin. So for a good 2 years, we had Scribus generated bulletins that went to print and came back looking fine.
And I'm wondering if it can import publisher files. Ooh, you can. You can. Nice. So for those, if you know a bulletin editor in your life, this is probably the greatest stress in their life, and so you can drop this to them and give them a link.
And I would say it's a happy medium between Publisher, which is really easy to pick up, but very, very frustrating in the way that it lays things out, and InDesign, which is very, very beautiful in the way that it lays things out, but very challenging to learn. I would say Scribus is between those two, where it's not as hard to learn, but it's also not going to make you beat your head against a wall constantly.
Right. So I want to talk about one last writing tool. It's called Markdown. I think I mentioned it before on the show. It's more a way of writing. When you're writing, say in Word, the temptation is to put all the formatting in, the bold and italics and all that sort of stuff. Or, I mean, sometimes it's necessary. When you're writing in a text editor, you can't necessarily do bold and italics. So this formatting called Markdown was invented. And so you can indicate, something is bold by putting 2 asterisks before, then after the bold section. Or if you want to be italics, you put 1 asterisk before and after, or you put underscore. There's some alternatives. And it has a whole syntax that goes with it. And most of the text editors we're talking about do support Markdown. And it's a way of writing in these. So if you don't want to use the heavy duty word processor like Word or whatnot, it's a way of being able to write in a light word processor text editor and still get the same benefits of that. You can have hyperlinking and tables and all this sort of stuff. And to go along with that is a plugin for Microsoft Word called Writage, which you can use it so you can write in Markdown in Word, but also you can import and export Markdown into and out of Word, which has been an issue for me in the past. Trying to get from Markdown into Word has been sometimes taking me through several different applications to get it into the right format. So this is a nice tool for that. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds of Markdown. That's a whole nother subject. But just I'll have a link to the Markdown guide. You can see what it's about, and then a link to the plugin for those who are interested in.
You can also use Markdown in Google Docs, which is something that is enableable. It's right. Not there by default, but you can enable it inside of Google Docs.
I really it looks like there's you said there's a plugin for Microsoft Word here.
Yeah, called Writage. Yeah. So so that could be interesting to check it out. So those are some writing tools, and we bring it up for a reason, but we'll get to that reason when we get to our picks of the week. This is a timely topic, but this is a whole bunch of writing tools.
Just one last point on the writing tools. A lot of these that we named have costs to them. A lot of the ones with costs have free trials for them. Usually they're 2 weeks to a month. In a few weeks coming up is Black Friday, and a lot of these tools will have Black Friday sales. So if you're thinking about buying them, maybe hold off a little bit and you might get a good deal.
That's probably in general, thinking about a lot of stuff buying. If you're thinking of buying it right now, maybe hold off a few weeks.
Although if you take the demo now, you can figure out which one you like the best and then know which one you're going to purchase on Black Friday. Right.
All right. So I'm sure we'll come back to writing tools again in the future. There's so many more that we could talk about. And I'd love to have listeners send in their favorites or any tools that they like and use that we missed. I'd love to hear from you. You can send that to technology@sqpn.com. And now, before we move on, I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Maureen, Adam S., Joshua D., Brian R., and Gregory S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we have some headlines. And our first headline is kind of fun. Call of Duty's massive file size drives peak internet usage. This is a story from The Verge. And so Comcast has announced that they hit their biggest week in internet history last week, as we recorded, so October 25th, when Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was released, and it had a massive 84 or 100 or 300 gig download, depending on which version you were getting. And so many people were downloading it that on the same time that Thursday Night Football was streaming from Amazon Prime, that it caused the Comcast to have its biggest traffic day ever. And the writer on The Verge points out that Comcast's 1.2 terabyte monthly data cap, which it says is, it's so huge, no one will ever hit it. It doesn't look so huge when you've just downloaded one 300 gigabyte game. Put that in there.
Yep.
Did you guys get Call of Duty?
Nope.
No, I did not. I have downloaded some incredibly large games lately, though. And one that I actually had to drop playing was Ark Survival, because they include every single map in the game, regardless of what you're playing. So you end up with a massive 120 plus gig file that you have to load onto your PC to be able to play it.
Right. Yeah, I played No Man's Sky a lot, and they're always sending, 20, 30 gig updates, which is great. I like getting updates to the game. It's an 8-year-old game. It's awesome that they're still updating it. But man, it's a good thing I'm not on Comcast.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, what has been the driver of such an exponential increase in game size over the past 5-10 years? Because honestly, have the graphics gotten that much better?
It's 4K textures.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to, is the
4K.
textures. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
because I wondered, was it that, and maybe a little bit of, laziness in compression, because, well, we've got all the bandwidth, so why worry too much about it? There might be a little, I don't know if there's a little of that as well. I don't know. I mean, the game company's paying for their bandwidth, so maybe that is important to them to make it more efficient. I don't know. But that's a good point.
The bandwidth issues, though, it's so low impact that really what it comes down to is these game sizes are all about the fact that you have graphics cards now that can process these incredibly large texture files, and they can throw as many of them as they want on screen at a time, because they've got some new technology that maps, which basically means that if an object is further away from you in the game screen, it uses a smaller texture until it gets closer, and then it can instantly load in that larger texture without interfering with the game running. Right. And because of that, they can just have, you have, not only do you have a 4K texture for all of these objects, but you also have a 2K and a 1K texture so that it can map to all those sizes.
There's another thing of the fact that I download this game. So probably my largest game is the NBA 2K games that I'll download. And when those get downloaded, within a month, I have to download another few gigabyte update every time. And so I imagine these Call of Duty games, it's not just my initial download. It's an update that's going to be 100 gigabytes, which is just really...
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Now, the fortunate thing is even when you get those updates, it's not 100 gigs added to the original size. It's 100 gigs, and a lot of it's probably replacements of things that they found. This didn't work in practice. This didn't look great on screen, so we're just going to replace these 10, 20 things with the newer version of it.
But I'm still using if I have
you're still using your bandwidth.
If I have Comcast and I get 3 of those updates in a month, it's still 400 gigabytes of my cap.
Yep.
That's very true.
Yep, that's right. And movies you watch and all the other stuff. So our next headline it comes from the Washington Post, and it's one that you shared with us, Thomas. It's this town has no cell service, so the electrosensitive have made it home, and it's about the town of Greenbank, West Virginia. And Greenbank is in the middle of a zone, which is a very interesting zone that was set up in the 1950s by the federal government, called the the National Radio Quiet Zone. It's a 13,000 square mile area where there are various restrictions on radio transmissions. Now, not complete restriction, like I said, varying, but there's one place in the middle where Greenbank is, where it's like there's no Wi-Fi, no cell phones, no cordless phones, nothing that can transmit. It's like going back in time to everything's landline, everything's wired. This is because it's the home of the 2.3 acre Robert C. Byrd Greenbank Radio Telescope, the largest steerable telescope in the world, which is so sensitive that a cell phone with a couple miles away, it would be like a shout in the ear compared to what it's trying to detect way out in space. So you have this town. It's basically a dead zone for radio signals. And it's attracted people who say that they have electrosensitivity, which means they are physically affected by electromagnetic radiation around them. And it's sad because a lot of people have been trying to get someone to diagnose and treat what's been wrong with them. And they kind of get poo-pooed and pushed away, and it's in your head, or it's a migraine. Here's a pill, and nothing seems to work until they move here. It's a fascinating story.
They say they can hear things, and so now I sympathize with this because like I can walk into a room and know that something is on, and so even if I walked into a room and there were no visible electronics, I would be able to hear that there was something on. And I think everybody has that. It's just how in tune with that you are and how much it bothers you. Really, that's really what it comes down to. And since developing tinnitus, it's become dramatically less impactful for me because I have constant ringing in my ears. But but it is something that I can notice. I can tell that objects are on and objects are running, even if there's no visible indication that they are. So I can really sympathize with people like this, and especially when you try and explain it to someone, because it's not like something that you can point out. Like I can point to a location where there's a sound, I can hear a sound. I can point to the sound. It's more just a general unease that there's something here that's on an electronic.
If you've ever been around, old computer speakers, when your phone rings, this is an illustration of the fact that there is interference in sound that these electromagnetic make. And so the joke used to be with our landlines, right? That when you had cordless phones, that you knew your phone was ringing before it rang because your computer would make the
would buzz, would warble.
And so you knew your phone was going to ring a few seconds before it actually rang.
Right.
And so I could see, and sometimes I've had sensitivity just to like little chirping noises that you can hear or buzzing noises like you're talking about. Nothing that disturbs my day. Just it's like, oh, that's weird.
Right. And for these people, it goes to a whole nother level because they report like burning on their skin and guy had like bloody fluid coming from his ear. I mean, this was like very serious symptoms that they were reporting. And and people, I could see, the reaction would be, oh, it's a tinfoil hat sort of weirdos. It's all in your head. And I mean, I can sympathize because my wife Melanie developed in her later not electrosensitivity, but sensitivity to fragrance. So any artificial fragrance in any product. So our house, we use detergents with no fragrance added, and shampoos and soaps and all that sort of stuff. And now because we've eliminated it all, we are all super sensitive to smelling this stuff. If I walk outside on a Saturday morning when everybody in the neighborhood's doing their laundry, it's like being buried in perfume. It is so strong.
Right.
And I'm not the one with the sensitivity. So I think we become inured to it. And like you said, if we dropped someone from the 18th century, brought them forward in time and dropped them in the middle of a typical suburban town or in the city, I think they would detect, like, what is that weird buzzing? What is that? I think it's something we would be sensitive to because electromagnetism is a thing. It is real. It is going through us.
Right.
This might be
all around us. Yeah.
This might be a fun Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Topic.
So I have to say, a couple of weeks ago, I was traveling and I met up with his friend of the show, Sean McCune, and he and I got a coffee, and he was telling me how he's a programmer, but he likes to get away. I think he says he goes to visit Green Bank on occasion for vacation as a way to get away from the world that he has to work in. So this There's no cell phone, and so no one can get a hold of you, which is an interesting
That
thing.
is fantastic.
Well, and they talk about how it's like living, 40, 50 years ago, where if you need to do something, you need to get a hold of somebody, you can call them on the landline, or you go over and talk to them. It's a different way of life. Maybe a better one that we've lost, where you can't just text someone. It would make doing what I do a little difficult, but yeah, I'm not sure I'm willing to give that up.
Yeah,
you're going to send us
a few things.
Yeah,
you're going to be sending us the cassette tapes to.
Yeah, our podcast will be now made on cassette tape. All right, and then our third headline is interesting. I just saw this today. YouTube tests removing viewer counts, and here's what we know. So this is from Tom's Guide. YouTube is always testing changes to the interface and that sort of thing. I mean, that's just. But one of the things they're talking about is some people have noticed that they don't see viewer counts or the date that a video was posted. Now, I really don't care about the count, how many times someone's watched, but I actually use the posting date as a way of keeping track of, is this something that's recent enough that I care about it, or is this old news? Sometimes I look at the video's topic and I'm like, if this is from a year ago, I don't really care. But if this is from a week ago, that'll be topical. I want to watch it.
Right.
This is horrible for, like, when I do Raspberry Pi projects, I do a lot of videos for it. And I use the date for it every time because I do not want to be using a video from 2017 to try to do a new project. And so you're taking away a key piece of information for a lot of things. I mean, people probably don't care if the cat video was 2016 or 2024, but when it gets to news, technology, those different things, the date's a good thing.
Yeah. You're going to end up with YouTube users just publishing dates in their titles, which then makes a whole nother mess. Like, what's the format on the dates that they're posting in their titles? And
there's always a way around that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny how these sorts of algorithmic or other changes, interface changes, it changes how how people act, but it doesn't accomplish in the end what they're trying to do. And what I'm just really talking about is people have noticed that if you use words like death and suicide in a video, your algorithmic rankings go down on YouTube. And there are other words as well, firearms related and that sort of stuff. So what do people do instead? Instead of saying suicide or death, they say unalive. He unalived him.
Yep. And
so we're saying the same thing. It's just a different word.
And if you want an explanation for some of the, not all of it, but some of the Gen Z slang that has started, especially around inappropriate words, this is how some of that started, was because they were getting filtered and they had to make up new words to not get filtered. So we've kind of created the monster of the 7th and 8th graders language.
I have to give you this anecdote. Sitting at dinner the other night, and I turned to my kids. I said, "Oh yeah, that's skibbity," and they all reacted in horror. Dad, you can't say that. I mean, all it means is good. It's like, oh, that's really nice. The horror wasn't in what it meant. The horror was that I used the word. Right. Oh my gosh, it was the funniest thing.
I do that all the time in class. You gotta be a troll sometimes. I mean,
yes.
It bothers my kids when I use those words too.
Yeah, I don't mean to be Sigma about it, but
that's totally Riz, dude. Totally Riz.
No cap. Okay, chat. Let's go on.
But then you throw in an old one and go, "Yeah, I'm really on fleek right now." And like they're like, "What? No, that's like 2010." So, as far as the YouTube changes, I mean, it's not definite. They're testing it. There's no word on whether this is an actual change that they're going to do. They're always testing things, but hopefully, if there's enough negative reaction, they won't.
Do you know what
bothers
me about this is the timing. We're sitting right before an election. And you would think these people at Google and Twitter and Facebook would have learned. Don't institute change from like September to November. Just don't touch it.
Right.
People are going to be wearing tinfoil hats anyway. Don't give them more fuel. Just leave it.
Right. Yes. So those are our headlines. And so let's move on to our picks of the week. And Thomas, why don't you take the first pick of the week since it's so very relevant?
All right. Yeah. So you inspired me with talking about the all of the writing tools, and I have done this before, so I would encourage anyone who's interested in it. You're probably listening to this on the very first day of the actual National Novel Writers Month, which is November. There is a website dedicated to it, nanoremo.org. They've gone through some changes this last year, so there's a little bit more tighter control on the chat systems that you can use and the way you can build teams. But the thing that I always found really inspiring about NaNoWriMo was you can put in your word count every day. And so their target is to say that you're going to write 50,000 words over the course of 1 month, which is a novel. And if you've successfully done that, you've written a novel. And they will allow you to track the amount of words that you've put in. So every day you just go in, you write, you record how many words you've written for that day, and then you paste it in, and it gives you a chart that shows your progress. And they have a lot of other like really useful tools, like, you pick a title for your novel from the very beginning. They inspire you to go and try and find cover art for your novel so that you have something to look forward to. There's a lot of over the course of the month, they give you a lot of little inspirational quotes and advice. So highly recommend getting involved in NaNoWriMo. And if anybody's interested in starting a group for it, maybe that's something we could do on the Discord for this year.
It's a great idea. Yeah. If folks show up and want to start a writers channel, we will definitely start a writers channel or a NaNoWriMo channel there. And I'd highly recommend, want to support that sort of thing. Yeah, it's great. I know some friends who've done it. And I have a hankering to do it. I'm really busy right now, but I've written things before. I wrote a really long Star Trek novel a few years ago that I'm quite proud of. Actually, it turned out really well. It was my own slice of a different part of the Star Trek universe. Didn't include any of the regular characters. And it was a lot of fun to write. And writing and creation is fun. If you have young adults, teens in your life, encourage them. My daughter belonged to a role-playing group. It's essentially a collaborative storytelling group. That's all it really is. And so
100%.
Encourage them to then to kind of move into the world of writing in a more structured way, or at least give it a try. Thank you, Thomas. That's a great pick. Father Joseph, what's your pick this week?
My pick this week is a record player. And so we're going to go old school here. But it is a new record player. It's a record player with a USB port on it.
Oh, nice.
And so how this came about is after my dad passed, my family and I have been going through his record collection. One of the great gifts my dad left all of us kids was the gift of music. He made sure we did piano lessons, band, everything. My dad in the Archdiocese of Omaha was one of the original people who made the movement to get band teachers and music into Catholic schools. And so has a lot of that behind him. So all of us just take such great joy in the gift of music he gave. And part of that gift of music was each of us kids would always sit and listen to records with Dad. And each of us had different categories. With Dad, my oldest sister did musicals with him. My other sister did percussion and piano albums. I was the jazz and Rat Pack and Sinatra and all of that stuff. And then my brother was the Dylan and the rock and things with Dad on that. And so we all have our records that we loved to listen to with Dad. And their mom's records right now. But it's been a really enjoyable time just to sit down and listen on the record player that we got Dad for Christmas. I think we got this 6 years ago or so. And so really good memories in the last several years of listening to records with him. But the main thing I've been doing it with it now that I only recently remembered is that there's a USB port in the back of it, which allows me to plug it into, I use my MacBook Pro, I plug it into the USB port in it, and it recognizes it as an ordinary mic. And so I can use Audacity and just press record, play the record, have a straight track. I go through and I can cut the tracks. And then I have another piece of software that allows me to go on a site called Discogs and grab the album ID and automatically put the metadata of each track on that. And so my Christmas present to all my siblings, and they already know this, so I'm not giving them spoilers, is going to be a USB thumb drive with a good amount of Dad's records digitized from that. I'm doing some touch up on them, but I don't want to remove scratches and pops too much because there's a beauty to that.
Well, I mean, if you were going to do that, you might as well just, go to Apple Music or something, and listen to that.
Yeah.
The beauty is in this is the actual music that you listened with your dad. And I love that.
Yeah. And some of them, I'll admit, there's some of them that there's certain skips in them and it sounds weird, but the album skipped at that point for 25 years.
Right.
And we remember listening to that song with Dad with the skip.
Sure.
And so there's a comfort in the exact quality of the music. So this has just been
at all. Yeah.
This has been very fun. A lot of just really graced moments with my mom listening while I get to do my own little nerdy thing on the side too. So
awesome. That's a great pick. And I love the retro feel of it. It's very 50s retro record player.
I laugh because it has a CD player in it.
Right.
And my niece believes that the CDs are retro too. So when we bought this, I'm looking at it and I'm like, really? That's kind of a new age thing to put on the front of it. And my niece is sitting there thinking like, oh, this is a piece of technology that just plays all the old stuff. And I'm like,
all the old stuff.
I'm like,
no 8-track,
8-track player, right?
I had one of these all-in-ones with an 8-track and a record player, so I'm old. So my pick this week is a bit of a dual pick. I thought I'd picked Homebrew before, but I guess I hadn't. So Homebrew is a package manager for Mac OS or Linux for the terminal. So the terminal is an app that runs. It's in your utilities folder on your Mac, and it lets you work from the command prompt. So all text based as opposed to keyboard, mouse based or trackpad based. And there are hundreds and hundreds of programs that you can download and use from the terminal for various reasons. And so Homebrew is a package manager for doing that. And I'll have a link to an article on how to install and use Homebrew on Mac OS. And then there's a particular program that you want to install called DD Rescue. Now, this is I learned about this on Mac Geek Gab, which is a Mac-focused podcast. And what it does is it is a data recovery tool for disk drives or DVDs or CDs or other types of media when they get corrupted. It copies raw blocks from a drive, so like disk sectors from it, one at a time, and saves them. So if some of the disk gets corrupted, it will copy other things. So because the problem is the OS normally wants to look at the whole file, and if even a small part of a larger file is corrupt on the disk, I can't do it. This goes in and gets one by one, and then once it's gone through it, it'll go back and try again on those bad sectors, and it'll keep trying a number of times. And it's been reported that DD Rescue is really good at saving corrupt disks or drives. Not quite to the level of what's his name, who does the show with Lee Laporte, the Security Now, Steve Gibson's software, which is Windows only. But if you're on a Mac or Linux, it will work. Really is a wonder worker.
I have tried this a couple times with 3.5-inch disc, which, I mean, if my pick of the week there could have loaded 3.5, it would have been perfect in there too. But I do a lot of retro computing with Tandys and old IBMs and things. And so I have a lot of discs still that were my dad's and things of either programs or writings or whatever. And a lot of them are bad discs now. And this has been able to save a couple of them. I did run it in its natural environment where it should be ran, which is a good Linux distribution, but...
Well, I was going to say, you start recommending homebrew to people. This is like a gateway drug to Linux itself.
This is the way.
People don't know that underneath that fancy Mac exterior, there's a little Linux running in there, a little heartbeat of Linux.
Mm-hmm.
It's or Unix anyway, but
Unix,
it's still we are cousins, spiritual cousins, shall we say?
This is true.
By the way, Steve Gibson's software is called SpinRite. That was the
SpinRite. That's right. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, and SpinRite is an amazing tool that he's built, but it's for PCs. That's if you're on Mac or Linux, DD Rescue is a nice alternative to help you. And then once you do that, you've copied it over, you copy it off to another disk. And the fact is it's not if your disk or drive is going to die or go bad, is when. All media goes bad eventually. And so you want to make sure you have fresh copies of things that are important, archival copies, keep them in the cloud or that sort of thing. But if you encounter something that you want to recover, this might be a tool for you to use.
Dom, on that subject, this is a proprietary product, but there's a CC Cleaner has a product called Recuva, which is RECUVA. And it's very similar to that, but more it's looking as an on delete, right? So it's if you've deleted files off of a drive, warning, you didn't really delete them. They're still there. And this product can help you find those, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen a couple different tools for doing things like that. There's another one for like SD cards recovering image files called Photo Rescue. There's a number of tools out there, and maybe we'll do a whole show on file recovery. Yeah,
but this particular one also will do things with some damaged hard drives too if there's been corruption. So
cool. All right. I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. So that Recuva. Excellent. So that'll do it for our picks of the week. And we would love to hear from listeners. What do you think of anything we had to discuss today? If any feedback you'd like to provide, you can do that by going to the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC276. That's Tech 276. Remember to like each episode of Secrets of Tech on Facebook, retweet us on X, X us, leave us comments wherever you find us. They've got to come up with a better term since they've changed the name. Until next time, Father Joseph Sund, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Sounds good. Now, if your people you follow on X are from Texas, do all your exes live in Texas?
Apparently. And Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you as well.
It's been great, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.